Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Cup of Hope with Hope Against Trafficking and the Michigan Abolitionist Project. Today at our panel, you will have the opportunity to submit questions by typing your questions into the comments section wherever you're watching, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube. And feel free to type those questions in anytime during the presentation. We'll collect those and address them during the session. Now, I'd like to go ahead and welcome today's panelists. First, we're going to have Hannah McPeak, the Education Director for Hope Against Trafficking, and Emily Johnson, Program Coordinator at the Michigan Abolitionist Project. And joining us for our special conversation about Human Trafficking Awareness Month, it's due time to join the movement, we're joined by our guest panelist, Joyce Dixon Haskett. She is one of the front runners in the fight against human trafficking and daily advocates for freedom and the restoration of dignity and value to those affected by this heinous and corrupt system. She is a frontrunner in the advocacy for children of incarcerated parents. Her clinical model, Levels of Response to Traumatic Events, LORTE, has been described as the most sensible approach in assisting children with incarcerated parents. More professionals have gone on to say there are no known programs, including programs in the OJJDP Model Programs Guide, which deal exclusively with the effects that incarceration of a parent has on a child and address the core issues as the LORTE model does. Joyce holds a master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan, but more importantly, she was an incarcerated mother for 17 years. She knows firsthand how the incarceration of a parent adversely affects children. Joyce began fighting for the rights of women who had been battered and abused and for their children while she was yet behind bars, and continues to work diligently on behalf of this elite population. Joyce is currently in private practice in Royal Oak, Michigan. She's the author of LORTE, Levels of Response to Traumatic Events, a vital aid in serving children of incarcerated parents, and is published in Women at the Margins, Neglect, Punishment, and Resistance. In addition to numerous articles and speaking engagements and trainings. So I'd like to go ahead and welcome Joyce and our panelists.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. We're just so excited to have Joyce joining us. Emily, so good to see you. And we're excited to kick off the new year with an awesome Cup of Hope episode with everybody. So we're going to be talking about Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It's January. It's the time to talk about this issue, and it's due time to join the movement. So, as we continue to learn about human trafficking and continue to gain awareness about this reality and about the fact that it's happening right around us, we want to take some time to talk about ways that we can get involved, how we can, as simple as, reading an article all the way to, starting a program. So we have Joyce here, so we're going to just kind of dive in. And then Emily, I know you were going to talk a little bit about the origins of Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So take it away, girl. I think you're still on mute.
Okay, hey. Thanks, Hannah. So I did want to mention real quick, on January 4th, 2010, actually, President Barack Obama made a presidential proclamation declaring January as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Awareness Month. By marking this month 11 years ago, Obama encouraged Americans to let go of assumptions about slavery and human trafficking and rather join together as a nation and global community to provide the safe haven by protecting victims and prosecuting traffickers. He said, fighting modern slavery and human trafficking is a shared responsibility. This month, I urge all Americans to educate themselves about all forms of modern slavery and the signs and consequences of human trafficking. Together, we can and must end this serious ongoing criminal civil rights violation. In his speech, he traces this call to action back to the United States founding principle: all people are born with an unalienable right to freedom, an ideal that has driven the engine of American progress throughout our history. And I found that information from the traffickinginstitute.org. So thanks to them, but I just thought that was very interesting. Thank you to Barack Obama. So this has been a National Awareness Month for 11 years now.
And his speech, he talks about the importance of engaging, that it's going to take the whole community, to do something about it. And so the call to action is very appropriate, and it's what we're going to be really talking about here today.
Mm-hmm. So Joyce, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask, so tell us more about the work that you do in the movement, working with survivors directly. You could even tell us a bit about how you were brought there, how you were brought to the work that you do. You could tell us more about working with incarcerated parents if you'd like. We're just so thrilled to have you, and tell us about the impact and the work that you do in the movement.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, Hannah. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I think both of you are just absolutely amazing women, and I'm just proud to be a part of this right now. I am a clinical therapist in Royal Oak. I have a plethora of different kinds of clients, and the hardest clients I have, well, I'll put it like this. The hardest clients for me to work with are those who have been trafficked. I do all kinds of trainings. Lately, most of the trainings have been for medical professionals, which I think is great. And the fact that they want to learn more about how to help survivors, particularly when they come through areas like the ER. And as you all know, that is probably the place that perpetrators, that's their first choice when a woman has a problem, to send them through ER, because they think that ER is so busy, all they have time to do is get them in, get them out. So I have been doing a lot of training there. I've been doing trainings for the Metro Airport Police on how to spot or identify suspected perpetrators and women who are being trafficked. Of course, I sit on boards and I do numerous work wherever I can. I am very involved with children of incarcerated parents. And I think the interesting thing about that is, and I'm hoping that this is an area that we can begin to really investigate, because there are so many women in prison because of a crime they committed against or for a perpetrator. And this is a population that we have not tapped into in terms of being victims of human trafficking. So yeah, I'm doing a lot in those areas. But I think what's most important for me is to try and get to the crux of the reason or the problem that a woman was trafficked in the first place. Being trafficked, of course, is traumatic. But I think it is more of a residual of the PTSD rather than the actual PTSD, because it's a result of something, some abuse, some abandonment, some neglect, some rejection, something that happened earlier in childhood. So I do a lot of work there to try and implement or show people how it started, the effects that it has had on their entire life, and the fact that in spite of what was happening to you then, it's not happening to you now. And you don't have to live as if what was happening to you then is happening to you now. You have a choice. And that's one of the first things that perpetrators do. They take your choice away from you. And I'm a firm believer that a woman's power is in her choice. So I'm trying not to talk too long, but of course, one of the reasons, for people who don't know, one of the reasons that I do what I do is because I was trafficked. And it took me forever to realize that I had been trafficked. I killed my perpetrator. I shot him. He died. I went to prison. I served 17 years in prison for killing someone who sold me for money. I was so messed up about it for so long because it's something that you don't understand. Because you know that in your heart you're a good person. You can't figure out why in the world something like, what did I do? What did I do to cause this to happen to me? And, I've learned over my life, I've learned that it was something that it all had to do with my childhood and the fact that my level of healthy self-esteem was destroyed before it was ever able to be developed. And that's what happens when you grow up feeling that you have no worth. It is something that is very identifiable. And perpetrators are trained. They are trained to be able to hone in on that. It's as if you're sending them a signal. Rescue me. I need help. I need somebody to love me. I need someone to care about me. And those are the weapons that they really use against you. They use your own fears and your own needs as weapons against you to convince you that they'll provide you with all these things. So, we talk about the three elements of human trafficking, which basically are force, fraud, coercion, which don't necessarily happen in that order. Because for me, it was the fraud first, because I bought into the lie that this person was going to make my life wonderful. He was going to make me worthy. He bought me expensive clothes and designer shoes and took me to fancy restaurants. And all of a sudden I was somebody. And that was the first thing. And then the beatings started, but the beatings didn't start until after he secured this relationship with my mother, my grandmother, my support system. They loved him. He took them everything they needed. And so I would start to show up getting all beat up and everything. And it would always be, well, Joyce, what do you keep doing to this man to make him do this to you? Or if you leave him, what about us? He's good to us. Okay.
Wow.
But what I learned is that they're only going to beat you so much because you got to work. But I think the most powerful tool they use in that sequence is the coercion. Because while my folks were on one side of town talking about how much they loved him and how good he was to them, he was on the other side of town saying things like, go ahead and leave, but you'll come to your mama's funeral. Or go ahead and leave and I'll have those two bastards of yours turned out in a week, talking about my children. And so when you know that someone who can carry out these kinds of threats without remorse, that's the kind of thing that will make you drive across the state with no ID, turn tricks, and bring back every penny of it. And you dare not get stopped by the police because you are afraid that this person is going to hurt the people that you love. So then I go to prison, and then I decide there that I'm going to learn how to help as many women as I can while I'm locked up, because you see, I had no out date. They gave me a natural life sentence.
Wow.
So, which meant that I was not eligible for parole. And so that was the only thing that kept me going. And I learned and I worked, and after 17 years, I was freed. Got into the School of Social Work at the University of Michigan. And after that, it's like everything else is like a vapor. Because now I feel like finally, my life has purpose.
Man, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story with us, Joyce.
Oh,
Thank you for just sharing your heart and your passion, your life with us. I really appreciate
it's an honor to hear. It's an
Mhm.
honor to be a part of that, and really hearing your story. It's like, for me, I feel like, oh my gosh, like so inspired and so drawn by the hope that you portray,
Mhm.
despite in what you've come through to come and be where you are now. It's so inspiring, and there's so much hope there.
Mm.
And it makes me feel like, man, I want to do something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it sort of leads me to a question, like, what do you see sort of as the current approach, right now, to tackling this issue of human trafficking, to tackling the predatory activity that people are inflicting on those who have been abused, who don't have the self-esteem, who lack sort of that support. What are some of the focuses today do you see as far as tackling this issue, whether it be within the state of Michigan or nationally in the U.S. or globally?
That's a great question, Hannah. Right now, I think that there's a great amount of focus on awareness, which of course we need. There's a lot of focus on outreach, which is good. And all outreach says is that here's a group of people who are reaching out to provide services to another group of people, which is different from them, or a group that feels like they need the help, which is great. Outreach is great. There's a lot of talk about prevention. However, you really can't have effective prevention without the right kind of awareness. Systemically, I really believe that we have to do more in terms of prosecuting not only perpetrators, but the Johns, but the people who buy the sex. You decrease the demand, you decrease, it affects the supply. So, and I think it's very, very interesting that I know that there was a law passed that says that, if a John gets caught with a prostitute, she's not going to jail. But if she does get arrested or whatever happens, he gets arrested too. He gets arrested. His picture goes into the paper. He becomes a part of the sex offender registry. None of those things are happening. And when I was looking into it, what I found out was that, we leave this to the discretion of the arresting officer. So to me, that is just a cop out or another way of averting what the law is. And again, putting all the blame on the victim, on the person who's been trafficked. So again, what we're saying is that the value of the John's life and his reputation is much more important than the value of the victim. That bothers me to no end. And so the only way to really tackle this thing systemically is we're going to have to bring everybody to the table. I may be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but we're going to have to bring everybody to the table, not just survivors. And I thank and praise God for every survivor. But if we only bring survivors to the table, what I have found in my experience, and this is only my opinion, when there are only survivors at the table, you find a lot of anger and retribution. I'm angry about this. I'm angry about what happened to me. I'm angry because it shouldn't have happened. I'm angry because the people who should have taken care of me and provided for me, protected me and supported me didn't. And the retribution part says, okay, somebody owes me for this. Somebody owes me for this, and who do I blame? So we don't want to be in a place where we're just angry about it, and we find that we're always trying to identify the people who are responsible for it. And then we expect the other people to do something about it. Well, it's very, very difficult to do something about it when you don't know how everybody else is thinking, what they're doing, what their positions are on this issue. So we got to bring everybody to the table. I'm not talking about just survivors. I'm talking about survivors, lay people, professional people, ex-perpetrators, people like that. We have to be able to bring them to the table. We've got to bring the doctors to the table, the police officers. We have to try and figure out the most important thing is that if you are really aware of the fact that human trafficking is happening, what do you think about it? I need to hear your ideas that are different from mine. We need college students. We need school teachers. We need everybody there because everybody's story is different. But we can gain knowledge from each piece. And it's only in putting all those pieces together that we can really begin to focus on finding a good solution.
Yeah, it's going to take a
you know, stop me, I will go on a rabbit trail.
That's powerful. That's really powerful because that is it. Like everybody needs to join the movement. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take everybody and turning the culture, the thinking, your typical thinking of, the example that you gave, like it's going to be up to the arresting officer to decide what to do then with the purchaser versus the prostituted. I mean, that is a mindset shift that has to happen with everybody. I mean, everybody has to be involved in that. It doesn't take just, and like you said, like, oh, they're going to take care of it. No, we all have to take care of it. We all have to join this movement. It's going to take us first realizing that this is happening and then stepping in and realizing I have to change the way I see people. I have to change the way I see this behavior, predatory or not, victim, or, it's going to take everybody stepping in. I love that. I just wanted to reiterate that, Joyce. I mean, on point.
I'm sorry, and it does. It affects everybody. It affects everybody, and people have both a legal and a moral responsibility to not turn a blind eye to what's happening. This is happening to children everywhere. Your children in school, they are not safe.
Right.
They are not safe. So we have to pretend that, well, not only pretend is a bad word, but you have to believe that just because it's not happening to your child, that you're not responsible for the fact that it's happening to someone else's child or could happen to someone else's child, and that you could prevent it. So, yeah, that's important.
Community approach.
Absolutely. Say it again, Emily.
Community. You have to look out for each other.
So what?
Oh, okay.
Emily, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, Joyce also said something earlier off air too, just putting some more emphasis on intervention. And was there anything else that you wanted to add about that too, Joyce? I thought that
my goodness. I was talking to some people, younger people, some people who had been prostituted. And so one of the women told me that in these hotel and motel rooms, we can always count on the fact that the Gideon Bible is going to be in one of those drawers, right? And so what she told me was that she was in one of these motels and she opened a drawer and there was a bag. And in that bag was hand sanitizer, girly lotion, mouthwash, toothpaste. And this was interesting. she said there was perfume.
Oh,
And
wow.
she said, and there was the morning after pill.
Hmm.
And I thought about it, and she said, you have no idea how much that meant to me. And she said there was a handwritten note,
Hmm.
a handwritten note from someone that says, you can do this. You're going to be okay. There are people praying for you.
Hmm.
And I started to think about that. And she said what it did for her was give her hope. It gave her hope once she felt better about the act that she had just committed. She realized and even allowed herself to believe the truth that none of this is really her fault. This is not your fault. And it gave her hope. And that's what this is all about. I had a woman call me from the hospital, a nurse. A nurse called me from the hospital. There was a woman there, she had suspected of being trafficked. They did call the first response team, the social workers in the hospital. Of course, the woman didn't talk. She was about 19. She came in with a 38-year-old man who wouldn't leave her side. They finally got him away from her. She still wouldn't talk. And what happened was when the nurses who were on shift, when their shift ended, they pretty much said, she's not going to say anything. She's not going to talk. She left. But the one nurse who was also on shift did not leave. She stayed 2 hours past her shift. The woman knew that she stayed 2 hours past her shift just to talk to her. And she ended up leaving the hospital. She left on her own about 3:30 in the morning. But she called the nurse. She called that nurse just because that nurse stayed an extra 2 hours for her after her shift. She called the nurse, talked to her once or twice, called her again 3 days later. 5 days later, she was out. She was out. Just because just because this woman let her know that she was worth 2 extra hours of her time.
See, that's the beautiful thing. That like you said it, Joyce, before, that the small act, the simple takes 2 hours or takes a smile can just change life, impact the situation.
The smallest thing. And we talked about it earlier. A gesture, a kind word, or something from someone who really doesn't believe that they are doing anything really significant can change the world of someone who feels they have nothing.
That's right.
It's amazing.
And so can I just say this too, as sort of a challenge, a call to action, just coming right off of what you were sharing, Joyce, is that there's no reason to feel like you can't offer, right, something.
Right.
Every single human being has everything that they need to step in and make a difference in somebody else's life. Everyone have it, it's like there's some people that are like, I don't feel like I'm ready. I don't feel like I have enough to offer. I feel like I don't know enough. I don't feel like, I understand enough, or I'm equipped to make a difference. You are. Every single one of us, every person is equipped with everything they need to make a difference in someone's life.
Absolutely. And you know what, Hannah, while you're talking about that, let's talk about how this is not even on the agenda. But I remember first meeting you, and I remember you telling me that when you started this, you didn't know what you were going to do, how you were going to do it. All you had was a desire and a burning in your heart to do something.
Wow. Yeah. That's all it takes, right?
And look at you now. Look at you. Emily was a kid.
It's because I'm watching and following people like you.
And look at her. I mean, it's amazing. As a young person, Emily, why did you even get involved?
It struck a chord. You can't, once you hear about it, you just can't go on with your everyday life acting as if it doesn't exist. Like something needs to change. It's an injustice. No one deserves to have that happen to them.
And what you two just said is exactly what we need. That's the message people need to hear. That's it. Ooh.
Wow. Well,
Why did we have Joyce with us months ago? Where has Joyce been this entire series?
oh my goodness, Joyce. Emily, you guys, thank you so much. This was such an incredible episode. I want to be conscientious of time. We're kind of heading to the point where we need to close. I mean, although I feel like we could talk forever, but we're just so grateful for your time, Joyce. So grateful for you, Emily. So grateful for Kendra, our MC, an amazing host and setting up this platform. But we're just, again, like that is the message, what Joyce said. Take that to heart and really step in with us, join us. And I want to say, please share a cup of hope today.
Absolutely.
And believe.
Thank you so much.
I love you guys so much.
Oh, I love you too.
Love
Thank
you
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today for A Cup of Hope. Thank you so much, Joyce. Your strength and inspiration was amazing. And we really definitely appreciate you sharing that information. In the chat, we've posted some resources for you on things that you can look up that might help you better understand or get involved with human trafficking. So we've got Joyce's website. Hope Against Trafficking has ways to give. And MAP, the Michigan Abolitionist Project, has a virtual volunteer interest meeting on January 21st. So you must register to attend. The meetings are on a monthly basis, and you'll find that in the chat in that link, because you can't click on the video, which is important to note. There's also a human trafficking summit coming up statewide, January 28th from 9 to 11:30 a.m. Registration is $10 for early birds and $12 after January 15th. There are discounts for team registrations up to 6 people for $5 each. Students, survivors, and law enforcement officers can register for free. Again, check the link in the chat. Otherwise, Emily, is it on your website?
Yes, on their website. Go to the event calendar on our website.
On Michigan Abolitionist Project. And then finally, we have some additional resources in the chat. Fight the New Drug Pornography Conversation Blueprint. There's resources for businesses to check your supply chain, human trafficking indicators, questions to ask, and where to get help. And then, of course, Polaris and their myths and facts. But thank you again, ladies. Thank you so much for everyone attending today's Cup of Hope panel and those watching it after it was recorded live. And we appreciate your time and hope you found it valuable. If you're interested in more, be sure to reference the links we typed into the chat. On behalf of Hope Against Trafficking and the Michigan Abolitionist Project, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.